The city was large and noisy, and sometimes it felt very lonely. But in the middle of all the tall buildings and busy streets, there was an empty lot. It was just dirt and weeds. For years, nobody looked at it. Then one spring, the city decided to make it into a community garden. They divided the land into small, neat plots. Anyone could have one. You just had to sign your name. People came. They were all different. There was Mr. Henderson, an old man who had lived in the neighborhood for 50 years. He wore a flat cap and moved slowly. Next to his plot was Maria, a young nurse who worked long, busy nights at the hospital. Then there was Leo, a university student from far away, who missed the green fields of his home. And Aisha, a quiet woman who came with her little daughter, Amina. At first, it was just about the plants. Mr. Henderson planted neat rows of tomatoes. Maria planted herbs, basil, mint, and rosemary, because she liked their smell. Leo tried to grow sunflowers, tall like the ones from his childhood. Aisha and Amina planted simple flowers, bright marigolds. They worked in silence, mostly. A nod of hello, a small smile. They were neighbors, but they were strangers. Then one very hot afternoon, the hose broke. Water sprayed everywhere. Leo jumped back. Mr. Henderson shook his head. Maria tried to hold the broken pipe. It was a mess. But then they started to laugh. It was silly, this broken hose on a hot day. Leo found some tape in his bag. Mr. Henderson showed him how to wrap it tightly to stop the leak. They fixed it together. That evening, as the sun was setting, Maria brought over a small pot of mint tea she had made with her herbs. They all sat on the low wall, sharing the tea, not talking much, but the silence was comfortable now. The garden began to grow, and as the plants grew, so did the people. Leo's sunflowers became tall and strong, but they leaned to the side. Mr. Henderson, who knew about stakes and support, brought some bamboo sticks. They just need a little help standing tall, he said. He showed Leo how to tie them gently. Maria's basil was growing wild. She gave big bunches to everyone. For your cooking, she said. Aisha taught little Amina how to water the marigolds carefully, not too much. The little girl would wave at everyone, her hands covered in dirt. One Saturday, Maria looked worried. She was at her plot, but she wasn't gardening. She was just staring at the ground. Mr. Henderson noticed. He walked over slowly. "Everything growing okay?" he asked. Maria sighed. "It's not the plants," she said. "It's just work. It's very hard sometimes." Mr. Henderson didn't give advice. He simply said, "My wife was a nurse." She said the same thing. This garden was her idea before she passed. Maria looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. She saw his kindness and his own quiet sadness. "Thank you for telling me," she said softly. He just nodded and handed her a perfectly red tomato. "Try this," he said. The summer went on. The garden was full of color and life. It was no longer just separate plots. It was one big, beautiful space. People started sharing more than plants. Leo shared stories of his home country. Aisha shared cookies that Amina helped to bake. They began to meet not just to work, but to be together. They celebrated when the first tomato was ripe. They worried together when a storm was coming, covering the young plants with cloths. One day, Aisha and Amina weren't there for a week. The others noticed. Their marigolds looked a little dry. Leo watered them. On the weekend, Aisha returned, looking tired. Her mother had been sick, she explained. She had to travel. Maria immediately said, "Let us watch Amina for an hour tomorrow. You can rest." Mr. Henderson added, "And I have some soup I can bring for your dinner." Aisha's eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears, but grateful ones. She wasn't alone. The season changed. Autumn came. The tomatoes were finished. The sunflowers bowed their heavy heads. The herbs were picked for one last time. It was time to clear the plots. But it didn't feel sad. They worked together, pulling up the old plants, saving some seeds for next year. They built a small pile of leaves and garden waste in the corner. "Good for the soil next spring," Mr. Henderson explained. On the last day, they had a small gathering. Maria brought tea. Leo brought bread. Mr. Henderson brought the last of his vegetables. Aisha and Amina brought a picture they had drawn. It showed all of them in the garden, with tall sunflowers and bright marigolds. They had written all their names on it. They sat on their wall as the evening turned cool, sharing the simple food. The garden was just a piece of land. The plants were just plants. But that summer in that city, something else had grown. It wasn't just tomatoes and flowers. It was friendship. It was a feeling of belonging. They had come as strangers from different lives, different worlds. But they had shared the sun, the water, the worry for their plants, and the joy of their harvest. They had grown a community, and they knew, as they said goodbye and promised to return in the spring, that the empty lot was not empty anymore. It was full of the most important thing of all, connection.